Hey guys, as we all know, Trump became the US president about 1.5 to 2 months ago, and after all the formalities, uh, he has finally become the acting president, and we just had the inauguration yesterday, where we saw all the tech CEOs attending that inauguration, be it Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos from Amazon, Sundar Pichai from Google, and Elon Musk representing Tesla and the government itself. So not only that, the main news that made headlines in India was actually Jaishankar ji, our foreign minister, sitting in the front row representing India. And we'll talk about basically all the Indian sectors which will get affected by Trump being the president, and basically any news that impacts Indians because now Trump is the US president. First off, as soon as he became the president, he signed a lot of executive orders. Like I think he signed about 80 orders, and I'll just highlight some of the main ones. Basically, he wanted all the government employees to come back to work and not do work from home to increase productivity. And then he wanted to freeze all the federal hirings because he didn't want to hire anyone that is not important or not effective. He want to be very productive in who he hires. And I think he has also created something called as Doji and made, I think, Vivek Swami and Elon Musk to be the head of that committee, where they'll be, I think, taking care of this, who is being hired into the US government. So to notice, increase that productivity over there. And the next main thing that he did was to withdraw US from the Paris Climate Treaty. So basically, this will apparently save $1 trillion for the US economy. That means, they are actually taking all this, proactive steps to save the climate, and they're spending a lot of money on, setting up wind farms and solar energies and a lot of other stuff, cleaning plastic from the oceans. But now they'll be stopping all of that, and they'll stop the funding also, so that apparently, Trump has taken a stance against all of this climate change. So it's very interesting to see what will happen over there, and this will not just affect India. I think this might affect the entire world overall. So next up, we have a crackdown on illegal immigrants. As we all know, the last time he became president, he tried to build a wall against Mexico to stop the immigrants from entering US. So I'll talk more about it and how he has taken much better stance this time, right? And next off, the TikTok ban. Clearly, it was banned under Biden presidency, and as soon as he became president, he said, what, worry not, I will unban you. Basically, I'll give you more time to sell it to a US company, so that they'll not be using, China will not be able to steal any of the user data. So that way, it stays in US. But again, he has been more forgiving than Biden, instead of just banning them outright. And this is because of his, pro freedom of speech stance. Basically, Trump was banned from all the social media platforms, right? He was banned from Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. But now that he's back to presidency, he wants to do things in a different way and give people the power to, express their opinion on the internet. And next off, the birthright citizenship. I think this is one of the most important things that we're going to talk about today, because this will affect a lot of Indians. So now, to understand what is a birthright citizenship, right? It's basically a legal principle. That means, let's say you go to US and on a work visa, and you have a children. Like, let's say you have a boy there. Now that boy will become a US citizen because he was born in the US land. That's called the birthright citizenship, and he wants to end it. And mainly because what happens is, a lot of immigrants will come to US illegally, will have kids over there, and they'll automatically become US citizens as well. And not only that, there are, very legal ways to enter US. For example, with a work visa, they'll go there. They're not exactly US citizens themselves, but their children would become US citizens. So he wants to put an end to that. And I have a very mixed feelings about this. We'll have to see how it will turn out, because see, over 5.4 million Indians are there in US. That forms to for about at least roughly 1.5% of the total US population. And not only that, two-thirds of the entire immigrants in the US are Indians, right? And out of that, 34% are US born. So clearly, there's a huge number of Indians in the US, and now they're all going to be affected by it, because if they have children there, in the US, and they're not a US citizen, then their children will not get US citizenship like they used to before. So clearly, this will affect a lot of people, who are going into Western countries and settling over there instead of India. So we'll have to wait and see if there will be any, forgiving stance for Indians over the coming days. But as of now, This is how it is. So and he also wants to put a complete ban on this, what we call as a tourism birthright. Basically what people do, they go to US in a tourist visa, and they have a child there, and that child would automatically become a US citizen. So now he wants to put an end to that specifically, because that clearly doesn't seem to be fair, right? And next off, well, look in depth on how Trump being elected as the president will have a proper impact on all the pharma companies. So before we even dive into that, let me talk about numbers. So whatever the entire sales of all the pharma companies in India, now 30% of that entire sale comes from US itself, and that's a huge number. That's almost one third of the total sales, and it comes from US. And now here we have both negative and positive impact on the sector. So first off, let's look at the positive impact. Now see, US and China, they're not friendly. They're very, clearly they have a huge, vengeance going between them, and there's a huge fight, and they've been each putting tariffs on each other. And clearly tariff means more tax, right? So if US is putting more tax on Chinese medicines or Chinese pharmaceutical equipments, what happens is that those companies will now have to come and buy from Indian markets, Indian pharma sector companies. So clearly, we might expect to see this is one of the positive news for the pharma company. But then again, there's a negative news as well, right? See, Trump is of a very pro Make America Great Again stance. That means like how we had in India, when Modi got elected, he wanted to stop Chinese imports, and Make in India initiative came into process. And just like that, Trump wants to make in America. So whatever are the generic drugs means, let's say you buy a cold tablet or a painkiller for headaches. These tablets can be prepared anywhere. And now Trump says that why import it from China or India? Let's just manufacture it by ourselves. It will add more jobs and more economy to our, it will be more favorable to our economy. So clearly, this is a bad thing for Indian pharma companies. And again, since there are both, positive and negative news coming in for the pharma sector, we'll have to just wait and see for a couple of quarters and see how things will turn out. Maybe if we look at the revenue from basically US, from the total sales for about 2 to 3 sectors, then we'll get a better clarity on what is happening in the pharma sector, right? And next up, we'll talk about IT. Again, at the beginning when Trump got elected, everyone was very bearish on the IT sector. But here also there are a positive and negative news. See, Trump wants to cut tax for US companies. That means he mentioned, if you elect me, then all you companies will have to pay less tax to the government, because I'll make sure that happens. Because he's a pro business, he has taken a business stance. He's pro business. He's a businessman himself. So because of the tax cut, all these companies will now have a lot more money to invest in the company's growth. They might hire more people. They might, go out there and purchase more office space. Basically, it will, impact the US economy in a good way. So people initially thought that this will get more money into hiring, and people from India might be hired, or more business will come into India. But then this is not the entire case, because he wants to bring in a very strict offshore outsourcing policy. What that means is, let's say there is a tech company, like let's say for example, be it Google. Now, if Google wants to hire a lot of Indians, because it's very cheaper to hire India compared to it as in US. Now, Trump says that, you cannot give all the jobs to other basically growing countries like India, Philippines, or China. Uh, he wants to hire more Americans, so that Americans have the jobs, American economy will boom. So now this will very clearly affect Indian IT companies like Wipro, Infosys, Tech Mahindra. All these companies, they get their sales from US itself. So clearly it will affect these service companies like Infosys and TCS. In fact, we have noticed as soon as Trump became president, the entire IT sector has been down as well, right? And next off, we'll look at the metal sector. And metal sector, well, this is one of those sectors where I notice a lot of positivity than negativity, because Trump has an anti-China stance. He hates China, and he has put all sorts of tariffs, that means taxes, on China. And now see, over the last about 4 to 5 quarters, especially the last 2 quarters, metal stocks have been really struggling. Even Indian metal stocks, even Tata Steel, JSW Steel, they've all come out and they've mentioned, you know what, it's very hard for us to keep our business going because China is selling, they're basically dumping a huge amount of cheap steel into the market. So now that it's so cheap that they're not even able to compete against it, apparently. So this is clearly not a good news. So now that Trump has come into position as the president, he might say that, you know what, you cannot will put more tax on China. So if he puts more tax on China, obviously the next best thing would be India. Now, keep in mind that China is one of the biggest importer of China, biggest exporter of China. They produce the world's, the largest. They make the most amount of steel in the entire world. So clearly, the next best is India. If Trump puts an end to Chinese steel, that could only benefit Indians. So we'll have to wait and see how things will turn out. Maybe there's a better hope for Indian steel companies. And next up, we have the energy sector, and Trump has taken a very negative stance when it comes to energy sector because he does not like solar or the wind farms. He even withdrew from the ESG Paris Treaty that will save them $1 trillion apparently. But this also means they're not going to spend more money on putting solar or these wind farms in all across US. They'll now focus more on this oil and renewable energies over there, and this will affect a few of the solar companies in India because all these solar companies were selling these equipments related to solar, right, to the US. Now they'll clearly, I think their sales will dip down a little bit because Trump has taken a very different stance, right? Especially the, like you see on the screen, the solar modules to the US. Now clearly that will take a hit. And next up, we'll take a look at finally the USD INR chart because see, if US is becoming more stronger because they have this, make America great again. That means US economy will boom. If US economy performs better than Indian economy, Indian rupee becomes weaker. As you can see, for $1 we would be able to buy $1 with 83 rupees, but now we need 86 and a half rupees. So clearly, you notice how while US becomes stronger, Indian rupee becomes weaker. Now this is a bad thing because whenever we buy something from US, we end up paying more money to it. So this is how it affects the forex market. So clearly, as we can see, right, as soon as this is where Trump got elected as a president, and since then. Indian rupee has become very weak against US dollars, and this has something to do with FII selling as well because they've been taking money out of India that will affect the forex market in a negative way. Now, there are many reasons. It's just not just Trump, but it also has something to do with the shift on how FIIs have been taking money out of India and putting it in US or in other emerging markets. So I hope you have gotten a better clarity on how Trump being elected will affect the overall Indians and each sector I mentioned, even the forex market. If you like this video, don't forget to drop a comment.
If you're a trader following market calls and tips for day trading, use our tool RNT, Research and Trade. All you have to do is link RNT to your trading account, then just sit and relax. Turn trading into business at app.gwcindia.live. Check out description for more details.
Disclaimer: investments in the securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.